Okay. So I guess to get started, Rose, why don't
Mhm.
you tell us where you're at right now with your son, and just for the recording's sake, repeat how old he is, and just tell us, I guess, your journey thus far in the where people have slept, what you've done, what's worked, what hasn't, that kind of thing.
So my son is he'll be 20 months this month actually, and he has been sleeping in our bed since he was 4 months old. And the reason why that started is because at the time, my husband's a pilot, and he was gone 1 week at a time, and he'd be home for a week, back and forth. So I, at the time, was also working full time from home. So when he was gone, I was definitely in single mom mode, and so sleep was vitally important up until the 4 month period. We had him sleeping in a bassinet. We'd swaddle him right next to the bed, and he just started waking up. So I brought him into bed with me. And at first I was super nervous about it, just because everything, I found online, or even just talking to my pediatrician, it was just very kind of slightly fear-based. But then I started really
Yes.
looking at the numbers and looking at what, other countries, what people in other countries are doing. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of, for some reason, I have a very peaceful feeling about this.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just going to try it. And then once we started, we both slept amazingly. And just when you're in that place where you have a lot on your plate as a parent, you're working full time, you realize how sleep is, you have to have it. When you don't have sleep, it affects everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that happened, and he's been sleeping in our bed ever since. My husband was completely on board with it. We both loved it, actually. But now we're at a point where my son is 20 months. He likes to sleep horizontally. We are all very tall people. I'm almost 6 foot. My
Yep.
husband is 6'4". He's a big kid. We have a queen size bed. So if you can
How,
use your
how tall?
imagination,
How tall is he, Rose?
he is like 34, 35 inches, I think.
Okay. That's hilarious because she's
Mhm.
3 and she's like 40 inches right now.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in the same
Mhm.
zone.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I get the horizontal issue. So
And
carry on.
and it's interesting because I get quite a bit when I mention it to friends. I definitely have experienced some shaming, just like
Yeah,
that's dangerous. You shouldn't be doing that. You need to be drawing boundaries with your baby. You need to be sleep training. And
yeah,
really, it came down to when I thought about sleep training, when I researched it, I didn't feel right in my gut about it ever. I never, ever, ever felt good. And, I know for some people it does work, and I understand that. But I knew that for me, for my parenting style, for my personality, for my son, for his personality, that it wouldn't work. The whole cry it out, it would not work for us.
So,
Um,
so, so let me interject really quickly on that note.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I agree with you. I felt the exact same way about that with
mhm,
this child. So let me just say, I have taken care of, and by taking care of, I mean like 365 day, 24/7 basis. I don't mean like babysit. I have helped take care of and several other children. Now, the first child, she just fell asleep. It was not an issue. We put her in the crib. It was fine. I think she cried it out for like 10
mhm,
minutes once. And it
mhm,
wasn't shrill, panicked crying. It was just like, "Wah, wah," like that tired, confused crying. It was like that. And then she fell asleep. And I didn't have that, oh my God, she's in trouble feel. Okay, then
mhm,
fast forward to the other one, and same thing. He was fine. It was no big thing. He went to sleep. Maybe cried a little bit, but it wasn't traumatic. It wasn't a big problem. I have friends who have a daughter, and she cried for about 15 to 20 minutes, and they said that it was hard, but she wasn't, you know,
mhm,
hysterical. She was crying. But
mhm,
then after that, they never had another problem, and she's been fine. Okay, so I do want to throw that in because I mean, I've read the research on crying it out and it scares me to death. It
Mm-hmm.
does, it scares me. But in the past, like I said, we've done that and it didn't feel traumatic. But with this baby, with
Mm-hmm.
my baby now, oh sweet Lord. I mean, this child as a young baby, um, if she cried for any length of time, she was vomiting. I mean, you're talking, and I know that certain methods say, well, if your child vomits, just keep going. You know, it's okay. And no, that just doesn't. That for me doesn't feel okay. This is somebody who's I love, who I'm supposed to be taking care of, and she is vomiting. Like it's not. That doesn't work for me. So around about the 4 month zone. I mean, in the beginning, in the very beginning, she was in bed with me, but then just for nursing. But then, like that first little while, and
Mm-hmm.
then we started doing the bassinet, and that went really well, and she was good. And then 4 month regression hit, and she was waking up constantly, and I was like, I mean, I was smelling colors, like I was so tired
Mm-hmm.
and I just had this craving to sleep with her. It made me feel better and she slept better, just like you said. We had the exact same experience. So now she's over 3 and she was sleeping in her bed successfully for a really long time. And then she got sick and she went back into bed with us. Now she's gotten sick in the past, slept with us, and then gone right back into her bed. We've had no problems. We're still in that regression right now where she's back in our bed and we're working on, but even when she goes in her bed in the middle of the night, she climbs in bed with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not unhappy about that. Um, certain people in our lives give us some grief about it, for sure. But the questions you have to ask yourself are, how do I feel? How does my partner feel? And is this working for all of us as a family? Is this working for our family? Not anyone who doesn't live here, you know?
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. When it comes to bed sharing, it's such a sensitive subject because, like we've discussed, or, other parts of the world,
This is what's
everybody,
done.
that's what they
That's
do.
what
They
they
bed
do.
share.
Yeah.
But here in the United States, we have such a strong focus and emphasis on independence, on really
Yeah.
instilling independence
Well, but
into our kids.
how many times since you were a kid have you heard "Let freedom ring"? The land of the free. We're the land of the free. I mean, freedom,
Yeah.
freedom, freedom. I mean, we are all
Yeah.
about freedom. So
Freedom and independence, which is
kids
not, and is
feel
not necessarily
right.
a, but I
No,
mean,
it's
I
not
think that
bad. But
you brought up
but
a good point. You brought up a good point, though, in that bed sharing, it has to work for the entire family. I actually just shared an article here on the live chat. And it's a guy wrote it, and he talks about his experience, how he was, from the beginning, adamantly against bed sharing. But his wife, he was an American. His wife, I think she was Argentinian, I believe, where she grew up in a culture where that was bed sharing was how it was done. But in the beginning, it was established that he didn't want to do it, but she did it anyways. And he kind of lays out how he feels it ruined their marriage. Now, I mean, I don't know if you can, who knows? I don't know. But I thought it was an interesting perspective. And I really do think that if you're going to bed share, it needs to be something that both parents are on board with. If one parent is not, and the other parent does it anyways, I feel like that right away is speaking a message to the other parent, and to the kid that parent is not important, or their opinion doesn't matter, and it can, I don't think it's healthy.
I I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
agree, but I don't disagree. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that, but I have like I guess an extra opinion there because I will say this: in the beginning, when she came in bed with us, my husband was like, "She's got to go back and you got to get her out of here. You got to
Yeah.
get her out of here."
Mm-hmm.
At first, and I just kind of was like, are you going to nurse her? Are you waking up? Because I'm the only one waking up all night and I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And this works and this makes us happy. So this is what I'm doing. And he wasn't totally on board at first. And for a while, because he, it was a strange time for him. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how else to put it. There was a little bit of a disconnect happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of a disconnect with him. And not between us per se, but him in his life and with, like, it was from him. I mean, if he were here, he would say the same thing. But it was, what I found with bed sharing, because people say, oh, you roll on the baby, you suffocate the baby, whatever. I got to tell you, I've slept with, um, I guess, 3 infants at this point in my life, 3 separate infants. And for me, I know that just doesn't happen. When you fall asleep with a baby, even if they're on you, you just kind of, your brain just knows that there's a baby there, and you just don't roll on them. You just,
Yeah.
you have that trigger of, you feel, even if the baby's beside you, in
Mm-hmm.
my sleep, if I even brush the baby, I'm like, I've touched the baby. I'm like, oh, is it awake? Did I mess it
Yeah.
up? So I have that hair trigger, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I think most moms do. Um, Now my husband back then didn't. She could scream in his face, and he was still asleep. And we had a queen size bed at the time, and we just couldn't afford to get a bigger bed at the time. So he moved in on the couch because he kept rolling on her. So we had separate blankets because he kept covering her up, and I would wake up and uncover her. And I was like, I was just constantly stop. I would the minute he moved, I'd wake up and stop him from moving. Like, I was just on it, and I was exhausted. So
Mm-hmm.
he went and slept in the living room, and I slept in the bed with her, and I, got as much sleep as she allowed me to get, and he was sleeping okay on the couch. It's not like it's not the best situation, but he wasn't miserable, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't easy. They had a sale, so we went and got a king size bed, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he moved back in, and that worked out well, the king size bed.
Mm-hmm.
But um, what happened was, all of a sudden one night, she put her head on his shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and he, like, became goo.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I don't want her to go anywhere. I like her here. Like, he just fell in love with her snuggling with him,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was a nice change, I have to say,
Mm-hmm.
for me, because that's how I get the best sleep. So as soon as she snuggled with him, he's like, I couldn't fall asleep because I didn't want to miss it, and it was the best thing that's ever happened, and he was so excited. And then the more that he got excited, the less he could sleep through things. So he has that hair trigger now that he didn't have. Like, so he became more and more connected with her, and she moves, he wakes up. He wakes up now, which
Mm-hmm.
didn't, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say that for the, I'm going to strangle my kid, I'm going to suffocate my kid, you know, in my personal experience, which is really what I can speak to, and in what I've observed, if you have that connection with your child,
Mm-hmm.
you don't squash them. You just don't. And like you said, other countries do this. So I do have an article I want to just put in here,
Mm-hmm.
talking about just what the world does, basically. And then also I want to point out too, um, as bed sharing goes. And I mean, I also want to say, yes, this is what works for me, and this is my feelings about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not by any means feel like, if that's not what works for you, that's what you should be doing.
Exactly.
This is not a preaching, or you have to jump on the bandwagon type deal. That's not, hi. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
at all saying that. But if you're afraid of bed sharing, if you're afraid of it and you think, oh, that's terrible and dangerous, I just want to point these things out, just because if it feels in your heart like you crave having that baby next to you, you crave having um, that just that connection at night. For me, especially with SIDS, so I also have a few links on that I'll put in a minute. They've realized, or they've been trying to figure out the actual cause of SIDS, and they're more and more pointing to abnormalities in the brainstem, which I find, I mean, it's good news is like, there's no good news when it comes to SIDS. I mean, but it's a little comforting to know that there is a reason, there is something. So they're trying to pinpoint the actual problem and then come up with testing and treatments for that, which is, I think, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, the first year, this was before that information came out. Um, I was panicked constantly thinking, am I going to wake up to a dead baby? I just was. And
Yeah.
her sleeping next to me, I was able to relax a little enough to sleep because she was right there. And,
Yeah.
so that was another thing that played a part for me. Uh, so as far as SIDS is concerned, bed sharing has been pointed to, oh, that's the reason, that's the reason, that's the reason. But I do want to just point out Japan. Japan has the highest bed sharing percentage and an extremely low, if not the lowest, infant mortality rate.
Mm-hmm.
So I posted the links to those articles that discuss, just a comparative analysis of the world and what they do. But Japan bed shares like 60% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
their infant mortality rate should be higher. In theory, it should be higher, and it's not. So I just want to point that out, as far as just bed sharing. Now co-sleeping is recommended, meaning that the child is in your room
Mm-hmm.
for the
Yeah, they
first.
talk about how the child will actually hear. So when it comes to SIDS, what happens oftentimes is the child will just stop breathing. And if the
Yes,
mother is in the room, there's just that they'll get into a rhythm of breathing with the mother. The mother actually regulates, the mother's breathing actually
yes,
regulates the child's breathing. So I think,
yes,
that's really interesting. But again, like Laura mentioned, when it comes to your sleeping arrangement, it completely depends on so many factors. So it's only something that you and your family can.
yes.
There is no one way, as with everything in parenting, there's no one way. So,
No, and I think
um,
I think you get like a feeling in your gut of that doesn't work for me, or that is what I need to do.
mhm,
And when you have that, like, this is what the right thing is for us feeling, then
mhm,
you have to listen to that. You have to listen to that kind of above all else. Now, I mean, if you're giving your kid Kool-Aid in the bottle, I think we can all agree that's probably not the best practice. Don't give your kids soft drinks in your bottle. Like, those are things like, don't listen. No, get educated on that. But when it comes to just, you're doing your very best and you're trying to make your sleeping arrangements as safe as possible, but while also getting sleep, absolutely. And it's not only breathing, it's heart rate. So when your kid's close to you, physically close to you, your heart rate helps regulate their heart rate. Your exhale triggers their inhale. And I've read articles, I don't have the links to these, I apologize, but I've read articles where they've observed families co-sleeping, or bed sharing, I should say. And there's a rhythm. They said it looks like a dance. The scientists watch. Mom moves the arm, baby moves the arm, dad moves the arm. And it's like a wave. One person does it, the next person does it, the next person does it. And it happens all night long, even when they're in the same room. But as soon as you take the child out of the room, that rhythm is broken, and is no longer happening and connected. So I thought I've really found that very interesting, scientific observation. So okay. So let me just put a couple of links for information about these new developments with SIDS and the brainstem abnormalities. Um, so that I just want to make sure that everybody has that information. So that's two different links. I hope it didn't. Let me try that again. I'm going to just post them one at a time because I didn't do what I wanted it to do. So that's one. And then this is the other one.
mhm.
You can go ahead and check that out and just look into the information as well. But I mean, for all those parents out there, who have said, oh shoot, I did this, I did that, I suffocated my child like this, or it must have been my fault. It's not your fault. There's an actual physical abnormality happening here.
And there have been some deaths that have occurred, in bed sharing but typically it was either alcohol, drugs were involved, oftentimes where the parent just was not, they were incoherent. They weren't able to. So,
yeah,
Yeah,
it's very important to stay sober.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me personally, being as exhausted as you are, especially in the first year, you're so tired. I mean, if I just had a sip of alcohol, I was out. So it doesn't take anything to help me sleep at this point. It's very important to keep your wits about you. And I mean, one personal story for me that really kind of solidified the sleeping with me thing was my daughter got a double dose of obnoxiousness from her father and from me. So her father has an increased gag reflex, and then I have this choking. I swallow. We have this and my grandmother has it. My dad does it. I do it. It's like this. When you swallow, something goes you almost can feel it click. And I swallow things wrong all the time. My own spit, it's awful. I'm coughing and people are like, are you okay? And I'm like, I just can't even swallow. It's kind of embarrassing. But my daughter got that as well. So she got the increased gag reflex and the swallowing wrong. So one night she was on her back in her sleep. She spit up and then she tried to swallow it. And then when she swallowed it wrong. And I think then she spit up more. My best guess, because I was dead asleep, out. I was so out. But she started hitting me. Mm-hmm. She just started smacking me. And now I'm dreaming. I was having a weird dream. And the more she hit me, the more my dream got stranger. And I thought, okay, in my dream, I was like, okay. And then I finally woke up and she was hitting me. She just kept hitting me. And she was like this. And I went, oh my God, and I picked her up, I Heimlicked her, and she lived. But if she had been in the other room, she wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that for me was like, oh, sweet Lord, she's sleeping with me. But that's a complication that we personally have, that she personally has.
And and like you mentioned, I'll be honest, I would oftentimes, I would have a glass of wine with dinner. I didn't shy away from that. And for me, I was fine. It was never,
right.
We're not, everyone's different. So
everyone's different. I know
I think the difference between having a glass of wine and being drunk are two very different.
But for me, a glass of wine would have been drunk. So I had to make sure that my alcohol intake was none because that is what I had to do. But you can have a glass of wine and you still have your wits about you. And then you see what I'm saying? So everybody is different. But I know this about myself. I'm just a lightweight. I am. So mommy can't drink because unless daddy's on duty for sure. And now that he's waking up, he can be on duty and I can pass out and it's okay, But in that first year, I didn't feel safe doing that because if she needs to smack me so that I can Heimlich her, I need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
or some people just, they sleep, and you would know this about yourself. People think I'm dead when I sleep. I don't move at all. You can't even hear me breathing. So that's just how I sleep. Some people move around a ton or very restless.
That's my husband. My husband's very restless.
Yeah. My husband and I are both very still sleepers. So
I'm still, and he's not, but that's why with the king size bed. But like I said, as he gets more and more connected, she slept on his shoulder almost all night last night. And it's fine now. It's fine.
Yeah.
But and he and I are fine. I mean, I literally just looked at him. I was like, are you secretly unhappy with the situation and you're not telling me? Are you, wanting to get out of this? where are you? And he was like, no, I mean, it's fine. So we're working on moving her back into her own bed. Like I said, we were successfully having her in her own bed. It was going great. And then she got sick. But let me just give a fun tip for those toddler people out there. My kid, now the thing is, I don't want to sleep in my bed because of monsters. There might be a monster. I'm scared of monsters. So I went on Etsy, and actually I should give props to, it was a friend of mine on Facebook who posted a picture of their kid with no monster spray. And I was like, oh, that's genius. So I went on Etsy and I found monster repellent spray, which is really essential oil, lavender, food coloring spray. And it comes with a note about how a wizard invented this magic formula or whatever. So, I mean, of course we tell our monsters there are no monsters. Like you're with your mommy and daddy. Monsters can't just appear. Like the thing to be afraid of is, potentially other people, but monsters are not, you know what I mean? Like the danger is not fictional characters coming into our room in the middle of the night. That's not good enough. So I said, well, I got you some spray and it's coming in the mail. You did? She's so excited. So as soon as this no monster spray comes, I think we're going to have no problem getting her back into her own bed, because she can do a couple of sprays and go back to sleep, or just go to sleep. I think it's going to make a big difference. So that being said, don't be afraid of psychological magic feathers, if you will. Dumbo's magic feather.
Oh yeah, there's so many ways that you can be creative, and that's one comment that we get is like, well, what if they never want to sleep in their own bed? And I'm like, as far as we know, I don't know any kids in high school, that sleep with their parents. I mean, Lord help us, please. He will be out before, obviously soon, but I think
we have a 12-year-old, and she goes to bed by herself in her own room every single night, and we have no problems. And now we reach the point where if she has a nightmare, she goes back to sleep, and she, tells us the next day. So it's getting them older enough
where they understand, and you can talk to them,
and that they own it and they feel good about doing it. And it's not a terror. It's not, you will sleep in this bed because I say so. It becomes, I want to sleep in my bed. My bed's awesome. And then they're proud of themselves, So that's where we were definitely there. We were definitely there. And then we just had this mild regression. So I think as soon as the spray comes in, we're going to be back in business. But, people say like, well, what about you guys and your life together? And,
oh yeah. I mean, how do you guys
have canoodling?
I know.
Guess what?
Well, it's probably,
there are other rooms. There
are. You have to get a little creative. Just be willing to be creative. Yep.
You get creative for sure, and like even the floor sometimes when we've made a corner in the floor so that we could still hear her. We had to be really quiet, but it still was lovely. And we do have a complication with the older one because if she's still awake, it's harder to go into another room, but we find ways. We definitely find ways, and it's, not an uncommon occurrence. It's not like our marriage has died, it's just, you have to get creative. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind in that first year, in our case, in the first 3 years, but in that first time, this is temporary, it's temporary.
It really goes by so fast. You don't realize, it's such a short period of time in the grand scheme of things. And someday it's hard to imagine this right now, but I know that someday, sooner than later, we're going to miss it. Like, the days when, he would just cuddle up.
Because when they're little, you can just scoop them up in a way that you just can't when they get older. And if I went to the 12-year-old and I was like, look how good you are, she'd be like, get away from me. You just can't talk. not that I talk that way to my 3-year-old, but you have those feelings of like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do when you squish your little face? And you got to grow with them. You can't keep doing things like that. So, you miss it so much. You miss that littleness so much.
Mm-hmm.
And if the two of you can just get that mindset that this is temporary, we are in this for a short time, and then it'll be just us again. And we want it to be just us again eventually, of course. But we also want to be able to look at our partner and be like, don't you miss that? And the partner goes, yes, I miss it so much, and you're in the same book, on the same page, at least in the same chapter, you have to keep that long-term goal in mind.
Yes.
So what do you do? What do you do if your partner disagrees with you about what do you do when you guys disagree? What do you do?
As far as like bed sharing?
Yeah, or you're like, if somebody wants them in the room, doesn't want them in the bed, wants them out of the room, and you're panicking.
Well, again, I think it all comes down to every situation and relationship is so individually different. So it's like,
agreed.
For Isaac and I, like, I'm a firm believer that for the long run health of my family, our relationship, and even for our kids, that putting my marriage and my relationship first putting it as like a top priority is so important, because I want my son to grow up seeing that his mom and dad, we have issues, we fight, we work it out, but that our marriage is, we're committed, it's solid, it's strong. And for the most part, I feel pretty lucky. My husband and I, for the most part, we pretty much agree, but we definitely have our disagreements. And there are times where in the heat of the moment, we get into it when it comes to how we are handling this whole sleep thing. But we're able to sit down and first of all, recognize that both of us are struggling in the sleep department. In my situation, we have, my husband is a pilot, so he has to get, by law, he has to get a certain, amount of sleep. So the challenging thing for me is that if my son is having a moment where he just wants to be up,
right,
I always have to be the one to get up with him, because
and I don't have that law, and I'm still the one.
I would say that's when issues kind of pop up with this with us, is that when there is the lack of sleep, we're not getting sleep. So I really feel that
I think that's something really important to say as well, is to keep that in mind when you're talking to each other.
Just remind each other. Remember, we're not getting sleep. Like my husband and I, we've been like, all right, we're not seeing eye to eye. We're having a super hard time communicating. Let's just take a step back and remember together that we're not getting enough sleep, and we both know what that does to us. My husband is the kind of person that he just really needs sleep. I never have needed a bunch of sleep. Like, I'm like 6 hours, I'm good. I'm just weird like that. That's just how I am.
We both,
but
sleep. We both.
But I mean, the challenge for me, and I'm sure you can understand how this is, that when, and I'm still, so another challenge on top of this is that I'm still nursing my kiddo. So he wakes up constantly throughout the night. My challenge is that I don't sleep for like I'm being woken up every couple of hours. So we're definitely in that mode of like, all right, we need to come up with a plan. It's time to slowly start moving him into his own bed, because we're recognizing just the effect that it's having on both of us, just as far as like psyche, like sleep, and so what we did is we actually have a little bed right next to my bed. It's like right up to it. And so we're trying to, when he first falls asleep, just put him down in there. And then, if he wakes up and wants to get into our bed, we're right there. That's fine. He can crawl into bed with us, but we're just going to keep doing it until finally he realizes that it's actually nice having more room, that he sleeps better.
And they really do eventually feel that way. They really do. The other thing I want to say is, and I know he's super little, but like, if he has a favorite something, if you get sheets.
So that's another thing. And I don't want to go and he's growing so fast, but I found I think that's a huge tool that you can use, is that if your child is really into something. So Paxton's obsessed with trains, which I know a lot of little toddler boys are. And we found this, it was actually relatively inexpensive. It's a train bed that it's like he's sleeping inside of the actual engine. I'm like, man.
Which is flipping cool, by the way.
It's so cool. I'm like, I just feel like if we had that, I almost feel like it might be, I think he would think it was so cool and he'd want to be inside of there. I don't know. Is that being extravagant and spending unnecessary money? You know, spending money, getting sleep? Is it like, you know, it's kind of worth it to me.
I know. Yeah. It depends. Like, it just depends. Like, I know for ours, you know, she was really into Dora the Explorer. So I got to be cheap. I got to get like just the bed frame, because it was the crib mattress, still fits and everything. And then I got the Dora the Explorer sheets and the Dora the Explorer, you know, the sham and all of that. And boy, did she light up. I mean, even at, you know, like around, you know, that the 18-month, 20-month age, she saw that and she was like, oh, you know, and she called it her Dora bed. And what I did personally, my daughter's extremely independent, extremely stubborn. And if it's not her idea, she's just not having it. So what I did was a little bit of, I guess manipulation, but I got the bed. I put it, because she was already climbing out of her crib. At like 18 months, she was climbing out of the crib, and it scared me to death. So I got a toddler bed. I put the Dora sheets on, and then I just didn't say a word. And then she was like, "What's this?" You know, she's like, "What? What this? What this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's your Dora bed." And then I didn't say another word about it. And then she would ask me, and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's your Dora bed. That's for you to sleep in." And then slowly I'd be like, "Isn't your Dora bed awesome?" Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's cool, huh? All right, let's get in mommy's bed. You know, and I didn't say we're trying to sleep in it. I didn't do it. I just said, "Oh, there it is, and isn't it cool?" And then after, I can't remember how long, but maybe like 2 weeks or so of just mentioning how cool it is and talking about how cool it is, she's like, "Mama, can I sleep in that bed?" "Yeah, you can sleep in that. Do you want to sleep in that bed?" "Yeah, I do." "Oh, cool. Okay, well, sure. If that's what you want to do, by all means, let's try it." And then it became my Dora bed, and she just started doing it all on her own, you know. And then it turned into, well, can we move it into my room? "Oh, well, do you want to move it into your room?" But now keep in mind, we would say like, "Oh, well, that'll go in your room." Like, "Oh, that's for your room. It's for your room." So we would say things, but not put any pressure and not make a big thing of it. And then it turned into, "I want to move it into my room," you know. And like I said, we've regressed, and the bed is back in our room. When she got sick, I brought the bed back in case someone could put her in it, because I wanted it nearby. But anyway, so we'll get back to that. But she definitely, like, I just kept saying, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." You just make it fun, and then just, yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's for you to sleep. You know, that's your bed. That's your Dora bed. That's for you. And then one day that'll go in your room. That should go. That'll be in your room.
For the strong-willed child, I think for the strong-willed child, that is a great approach. So it's their choice. You know, give them the time and the space to make that decision. Like, okay, I want to sleep in it. It's there. It's available. I like it.
She's so proud when, you know, that, not right now, but generally she's so proud of herself. Like, I sleep in my Dora bed, you know, and she's just all proud and regal about it. And I love it because it's not an argument. It's not a fight. And if she ends up sleeping with us, we're still happy because we both love it when she snuggles with us. I don't enjoy snuggling with her feet in my stomach. I mean, like you said, she sleeps horizontally. It's not always comfortable. Is it a sacrifice? Yes, of course. It's a sacrifice. I don't sleep as well. But, you know, here's the sad truth for me. I don't sleep as well when she's in her bed.
I know.
Like, let's be honest. Let's lay it out here. If she's asleep in her bed, I'm laying there waiting for her to wake up and come snuggle me.
It's so unfair. Like you have, I had a while back, like I had one night away from my baby, and I was like all day, like, I am going to sleep tonight. Like I am going to get a full night of sleep. I cannot wait. I was like, I don't think I've ever been so excited for something. It was like a fantasy in my head to sleep. Sleep becomes a fantasy. Well, of course, the moment I got in bed, I didn't sleep the entire night. I couldn't sleep. Yeah. I was like, what? It's a curse. Like, you know?
Yeah. I seriously, I've spent one night away from my daughter as well, and she was with her father. So I felt really good about that. Mm-hmm. And I knew she was fine. So I did sleep that night, but it was a very fast thing. So I couldn't sleep all night because I had to get up super early to leave the next day. So that would have been, I was like, man, I missed my chance. But I did sleep. I got like 6 straight hours, which was amazing. I felt great. And I was okay because I knew she was okay. I knew she would be fine until the morning when she was sobbing and asking why I wasn't there when she woke up. But, you know, as far as like at home, when we lay down and she's in her bed, I got to tell you, lots of times I lay there and I'm like half listening. Like I'm like just waiting. When is she coming to wake me up? When is she going to wake me up? And like when she sleeps with us, I don't do that because she's right there. So I know I'm not getting woken up. I know she's not going to wake up in the middle of the night. If she's in her bed, she's going to wake up and she's going to climb in bed with us. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how long till she wakes me up? You know what I mean? And like my brain plays. So like, let's be really honest here. Like whatever option leads you to actually sleeping, like I'm all for it, because for me, if she's not beside me, I struggle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah.
I almost miss her. And I'm like, but I'm physically so much more comfortable. My arms are like, thank God I have, you know, I'm like, oh, I can stretch out. And then I stretch out and I'm like, I stretch out and my soul is like, but where's my baby? You know?
I've learned to sleep on like a little sliver of, you know, don't move because you don't want to wake them up.
Yeah.
Be still.
It's more painful for them to wake up than to get out of this horrible position. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, you know, before, just because we're getting close on time, one thing I wanted to bring up, I think something, a real challenging topic is the whole crying it out method, because there are so many different schools of thought, so many different opinions. Doctors, they all say something different. So it's kind of it's a tough call to make. I have friends that use the crying it out method and like young, like when their kids were like 8 weeks old, and they did it. They did it. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's not a conclusive thing. But just if you're interested, there's a couple of articles. This one is actually from Psychology Today, right here. I'll put this up in the.
And I would like to say, I had a friend who started that young as well, and she had to always redo it.
Yeah.
Because the kid would reach a new age, have a new challenge or new whatever setback, and she'd have to go through the whole thing all over again.
But again, I have friends that were successful at it.
That were successful at first and stuck, because I have friends who did it and they had to redo it and redo it and redo it and redo it. And she was like, she's like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, I understand. So
this article from Psychology Today really like lays out the actual like neurological damage that it can do to a young baby. And it explains it in ways that it's really interesting. And it just talks about, when a baby is developing, just how touch, being held, and really what crying means to them. It's kind of like when we're thirsty, we go and get a drink of water. When a baby when a baby's scared, they cry, and us picking them up is that water that they need in order to quench that fear. So again, it's a complete, if you research it, it's almost like a frustrating, because there is no conclusive.
Yeah, because there's so many things. Information.
Yeah. So just kind of to counteract this, here's another article that kind of, it's the pros. And it talks about a couple of methods that you can use that they say are, safe and proven and whatnot. So again, if that's something that works for you and for your family, awesome. If you're doing it, that's great.
For me and like I said, in the past with the other two children, it didn't feel traumatic. They cried, they fussed. I would say fussing. They were fussing and then they went to sleep. It wasn't screaming or wailing or, terror. It was just some fussing for like 10 minutes and they went to sleep. It wasn't, but my daughter like vomits within seconds, 10 seconds of scream. She's throwing up. Cause she just was berserk. She was berserk. And now she's so calm. Once upon a time, she woke up constantly. She was just constant. And now she sleeps through the night. We talk. She doesn't wake up. She, if she falls asleep in our bed, we leave the room and go, we might watch TV. We might clean the kitchen, whatever we're doing. We come back into the room at whatever time it is, several hours later. We're talking, we're knocking things over sometimes, because it's dark. And she doesn't wake up. She's so much calmer now. She's so calm. And she's super independent. So, like I said at the beginning, we've heard our whole lives, let freedom ring, freedom, freedom, freedom. And I think, which I'm not saying freedom's bad. I mean, I like freedom. It's good. But what I'm saying is parenting is not always about freedom. It just isn't. And at least not in the beginning. And, I think the American mentality is anything that encroaches on your freedom is bad. And I don't think it's it's just, does that resonate with you? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, we just kind of have that programmed. That's that like programming of anything that makes you not free is bad. So when you have a kid and you've been told your whole life that you're free, and you ain't free for a little while,
You lose your personal freedom for a long time.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a horrible thing. This kid's got to get out of my room. This kid's got to, I think that's where that comes from with the American mindset. And, you have to really take a step back and look at that because the rest of the world, in my opinion, the rest of the world gets it right. In my opinion, that's how I feel. And with my child, that's what my child needed. My child needed us to live in Sweden. That's what my kid needed.
Well, I agree with you. There is a fine line, though. There's a fine line. I think it's really important to understand, yes, becoming a parent requires a lot of sacrifice. And you do, especially in the first couple of years, you lose a lot of your personal freedom. I mean, you just, you do.
See my fingernails? I didn't choose this. Do you think I chose neon orange and pink? I mean,
but there's a fine line because, especially, as the mom and the dad, your well-being, your health, your mental stability, you have to put that. You don't just let that go. You're a mom. You're not a martyr. So if you're not getting sleep, the human body, you can't take that. Sure, moms, we have like an influx of hormones and a deep kind of a carnal drive as moms that drive us through, but we're still human beings. And if you crash, that's the worst thing that can happen for you and your babies. So it's important to hold on to that understanding that you are worth just as much as you are ever worth.
Absolutely.
You need sleep. You need to do whatever it takes to get sleep, and you need to make sure that you are being taken care of. There's a fine line. It doesn't mean that you completely just surrender yourself to the flames of martyrdom as a mom, No,
but you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, no, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where it's like, this kid's got to get out and get a job. You know what I mean?
You need to try it on your own.
Yeah, like, life sucks, kid. Get over it. No, like that's what I'm saying. That mentality is like a little bit too far. But what you're saying is the other end of the spectrum, where you can't just lay down and go, well, I don't matter anymore.
No, you can't do that.
I'm miserable. Let's just keep going. No, we're saying come somewhere in the middle. Come somewhere in the middle where everyone's needs are being met. And even if you and your partner don't agree perfectly, at least agree to disagree in the moment and find something that will work for both of you. And don't leave each other. Don't disconnect from each other. Like, stay in the game.
Yeah, it's agreeing to be on the same team. I mean, even a sports team, they take timeouts because they have to like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through this? And they discuss it and like, okay, here's how we're going to, and it's okay if you don't agree, but it's
You
just making that decision that we are on the same team here. And we may not have all the answers or all the plays figured out yet, but we're going to.
And it's just, and at the end of this, we're going to be stronger, and we're not going, we're not going to tear each other apart in the middle of this situation. We're going to be on the same team. We're going to fight the good fight, and we're going to hang in there and ride the wave, because in a couple of years, this will no longer be an issue. And then the two of you have to be able to connect again and come back together again. And I don't mean like connect again, like you stopped connecting. I don't mean that, but you have to be like, you have to kind of put on your big girl britches and deal with the fact that this person is in your house. This is a change. And, if one parent desperately needs this to sleep, then we've got to find another way that the other parent can sleep adequately, and then have your canoodling times in creative ways, and still keep that communication open, keep that dialogue going. And you have like men, if your wife is like, I desperately need this, I'm not saying get on board. That's not what I mean, but it's like, it's just a matter of, okay, this is what she needs. This is not working for me right now, but like, let's find a way that we can compromise, or find a way that we can create a new situation. Maybe it's, I sleep in the guest room, she sleeps with the baby, but after the baby's asleep, she comes out for a little bit. We spend time, she comes to my room for a little while, and it's only temporary. This is not meant for permanency. You're not sleeping, you're not relegated to, permanently. You're still together. You're still on that same team. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Am I making sense?
Yes.
So I just, yes, it's difficult on marriages for sure. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is our family. This is our family. And you got to roll with it. You have to.
Exactly. Yep. And you will. You trust it. I mean, look at the two of us. We found a way we're rolling through it right now.
Yeah. I mean, and if I'm being totally honest, in the beginning, it was hard because, we were on such different pages. I mean, I don't think we were in the same book, to be honest. Like, we were in completely different books. And I just felt so alone. I felt so alone. But, you, again, holding on to that, this is temporary. And we grew through that. And I had to, he had to come around, and it took a lot of talking, and it took a lot of effort and work and letting go of my resentment of that time. Yeah. Because I definitely felt it, for sure. I mean, I was really angry.
And it's easy to get in a bubble where all you see is what's happening to you. And but I think that's the big thing, is reminding yourself that your partner's going through it too. Their world's being rocked, just like your world's being rocked. Yeah. And choosing, even in the wee hours, 3 a.m. in the morning, to show kindness to your partner. Yeah. All right, they need to get sleep too. It's hard. You have to, anyways.
Yes, it's hard.
We can a whole other conversation. We could go on and on.
In the middle of the night, if he was snoring, it's not like it was a conscious choice for him to be snoring, but I was so tired. Like, any sleep disruption, like, you're a grown-up. Stop making noise. You know what I mean? You have that moment where you're like, you can't make noise. The baby's the only one. And I mean, in my mind, I like had this button that I could push that would like punch him so that he would stop making noise. I didn't do it. I never built it, and I probably would never built it, but it made me feel better in the moment. And I told him, I was like, I want to punch you in the middle of the night. Like, I just want to punch you in the face. But I told him, but then his response, he rolled with it. Like, he knows I love him. But I had to say it so that I could stop being so angry. And then he had to hear it, that how my struggle, and be honest with each other. We have to get raw and be honest. And then you have to not hate each other for each other's truths.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and recognize the humanness in each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, and he was like, well, you know, I don't blame you. and then we kind of move forward from that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does. It definitely takes that attitude of like, we're going to get through this.
No matter what.
So,
Yep.
yeah, no matter what. So everyone,
Mm-hmm.
hang in there. Do what works for
Sleep
you.
is on the horizon. It
Sleep
is.
yeah. And, you know, do what works for you. Do what you need to do with your baby that makes sense. And if you have to show your person this recording, show your person this recording, you know. Show your husband, your partner, your the father of your child, if you know you're in the same household and you're struggling, show them this, because you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're not.
I was
In fact,
yeah. Go ahead.
I always put up our blog.
Yeah, please go check it out. I mean, you'll see.
We have lots of posts on sleeping.
Yeah, lots of posts on sleeping, lots of posts on, you know, communication and stuff too. So just check it out, and you are so not alone. So not alone.
Yep. So. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Great, bye.
Bye.